Everybody, it's Dr. Joe's in the house. Sorry, a couple of minutes late. Just wrapping up another meeting and so on. So hope you're doing well on this Wednesday evening. And another great topic lined up. And we're going to talk about money. And the subject is going to be Newbie's Guide to Financing. Getting your first investment property. So that's what we're going to focus on. It's all about the money, especially if you're a new investor. And one of the challenges new investors have is, where am I going to get the money from? What are the sources of financing? What's the source of money? What are the pros and cons? What do I need to do to, quote unquote, become bankable so I'm more attractive to lenders so I can get the money? So that's what we're going to talk about today. And it's going to be another good session as usual. Let's have a look. Let me bring up this. There we go. Okay. And there's light. And so a couple of things. Yesterday I was in Richmond, Virginia. Kudos to Ray and his folks down there. I was in Richmond, and I was invited as a guest speaker on Cracking the Code. It's a one-day event. Very, very well turned out. Great, great fun. I think Ray may upload some of this the sessions on social media, so hopefully you get an opportunity to hear what I said, but also what other people talked about. I was talking about how to attract and retain tier one tenants that stay a long time. So it was a great session. Next Thursday, week tomorrow, I'll be a guest speaker at another event here's in Washington, D.C. It's at the U Street corridor, and it's called a Flair Lounge. It's going to be next Thursday between 6 and 8 o'clock. It's on Flair Lounge in Northwest DC on the U Street. Check that out. Again, I'll be talking about some of my experiences and hopefully helping you as you grow your portfolio and achieve your financial independence goals. So I look forward to seeing you next Thursday, sorry. And I think there's also an event next Wednesday. That's at the Capital Connections, on U Street as well, 1600 block. And I won't be able to make that one because I'll be here doing Wealth Wednesdays. But again, that's what's going on in my world. Okay, so today, shout out to Charles. Congratulations to Charles. He bought his investment property yesterday. Kudos to Charles. Well, no, Monday, in fact. And so looking forward to working with Charles as we transform a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house into a 6-bedroom, 4-bath house. So that should be a fun journey. Kudos to Charles and so on. So let's get going. The Newbie's Guide to Financing, getting your first investment property. That's the topic of today. Before I get too far, if you've got some questions, as always, put your questions in the chat box and I'll get to them in about 20 minutes or so on the Ask Dr. Joe. So if you've got anything to do with real estate investing, please put your questions in the chat box and I'll get to that. And likewise, if you have any issues, challenges pertaining to real estate that you feel that you could do with my advice or counsel or share my experiences, my thoughts, you can also book a one-on-one with me. Just go to my website, joeasimo.com, and we can really do a deep dive into the situation that you have, whatever that may be. There's a pretty good chance I've probably been through it. There are a whole lot of scenarios I haven't experienced firsthand, so hopefully I'll be able to share with you my thoughts, my experiences, and some of the mistakes that I've made, and hopefully you can avoid making some of those. So that's go to my website, joeasimo.com, www.joeasimo.com, and you can book a one-on-one with me. That part is paid because we're going to spend probably an hour or so doing a real deep dive. And the sessions I've had in the past have been very, very successful. So I think it's worthwhile if you have a pressing situation that you feel that I could help you with. Without further ado, let's get going. And as I said, we're going to talk about getting money, especially if you're a first-time real estate investor, and so on. So the issue then becomes, why is understanding financing crucial for your first real estate investment? Why do you need to know about money? I think we all know why we need money. But navigating the financing landscape is really a challenge for a lot of people, especially if you're a new investor. It can be seen like it's very daunting. It's very intimidating, and but the bottom line is that your ability to secure financing is the key to your growth, and it's going to significantly impact your returns and also your risk level. There are certain types of financing which are more appropriate than others. I mean, yesterday's session we had several hard money lenders, commercial lenders, private lenders talking about the pros and cons of different programs. So again, depending on which one you decide to pursue, there are pros and cons. I'm going to talk about a couple of them today. I'm going to talk about traditional financing, seller financing, partnerships, and government programs as well. But there are pros and cons with each one. And what I want to do is to help you master the various financing programs that's available for you, whether you're a new, intermediate, or seasoned real estate investor. My goal is to help you make informed decisions, leverage the opportunities that are out there in terms of financing, and also avoid overextending yourself financially. Financing is a double-edged sword. And I've been through cycles before, and it's great to be able to borrow money, because it allows you to leverage. But if you don't manage that properly, especially if there's a downturn or you can't really implement your exit strategy, then debt can be a disaster, and it can take you out. And and so on. I've seen that many times, before, as we go through market cycles. If you can't implement your exit strategy, i.e., to get out, then now you're saddled with this debt. And if you don't have the financial means to keep it going, then the lenders can come in and take your property from you, and so on. So it's really important to understand the pros and cons of each different types, and which one makes the most sense for you, given your situation, given your risk tolerance level, and also given the economic climate that we're in. So for new investors, grasping this topic that I'm going to talk about today is really, really important. It's critical. It's fundamental. And so please pay attention. I think a good foundational knowledge of money is going to help you, grow faster, and hopefully grow at a pace that's sustainable, and hopefully, will get you to where you want to go in terms of financial independence and financial freedom. Okay, so before I get too far, let's talk about a couple of action items that you can do before I drill down further. First of all, is an action item is familiarize yourself with some of the basic terms and concepts as it pertains to real estate financing. Things that's mortgage rates, loan to value, amortization, debt to income. These are terms that lenders, will be using. And so it's important that you become familiar with it and you don't get too intimidated by them and things like that. Another action item you can do to start off with is subscribe to various financial newsletters, real estate news, economic news, find out what's going on in the marketplace. I know the CPI, Consumer Price Index, I think the inflation was like 3.9. I think it ticked down a little bit this month or last month. So, I mean, these things affect, financing, affects real estate. So I think it's important to kind of keep abreast of those things, of market trends, and and financing conditions. Another action item you may want to consider doing is to join some of the local real estate investment groups out there, forums. RE, as they call them, Real Estate Investment Association. Just kind of network with like-minded people who are in this business. So you can learn from their experiences, and you can possibly find mentors that will help you in terms of raising money, financing, and things like that. Okay, so that's a basic level of action items. Let's get down to some of the nitty-gritty. Traditional banks. So that's the first level that I think a new investor needs to understand is the roles of the traditional banks. And then the question becomes, how do traditional banks, or traditional bank loans, I suppose, work? And what are the benefits and limitations for new investors? So what are these different programs? How do they work? And what's it to do with me? And what do I need to know about them? Okay, so traditional bank loans are often for many people, it's the first step on this ladder. That's where the money is. And there are banks, there are mortgage companies, there are loan companies. There are traditional avenues or platforms where you can get money. And these loans, typically, if it's from a bank and a financial institution, are typically secured by the asset itself, secured by the house. And so which means that if you don't pay, they're going to take the house from you. Okay, pretty straightforward. The house is what we call the collateral. This is what we are securing the debt against. Okay, so banks, obviously, in order for them to borrow you money, they're going to check you out. They're going to check your credit worthiness. What's your financial history? And they also want to understand the value of the property to make sure that it's worth what you think it is, and that the collateral that they have is actually worth something. It's not just worthless. And so that there's certain things that the bank's going to do. Banks, obviously, many banks anyway, are federally chartered. So there are rules that they have to abide by. They're regulatory, terms and conditions that they have to comply with. So they can't just borrow money willy-nilly. They have to go through some kind of screening process. They're going to have to check you out. They're going to ask for certain documentation, because that's what they do. And some banks are obviously a bit more conservative than others. Others are very aggressive. And depending on your experience level, you may be able to get money easier than other people. So the primary benefit, though, of banks is, for the most part, is once you understand the process, it's pretty reliable, pretty predictable. And many times they offer fixed rate loans. It could be 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, 30 year, 20-year fixed rate loans. And so you have structured payment plans, and that span the market from 5 to 1 to 10 to 7 to 15 to 30 years and so forth. Fixed rate loan, the good thing about that is that it allows you to predict your cash flow, because it's fixed for a certain length of time, and you can make decisions, you can make plans around that. But there's no easy money, there's no free money. So obviously, to borrow money, there are some restrictions and requirements, that's going to be in place depending on your experience level, your credit worthiness, your collateral, and so on. So the qualification criteria can be stringent, especially if you're starting out. Many times they expect you to have decent credit. It could be in the upper sixes, low sevens, mid sevens, and so on in terms of credit scores. Many times they prefer to have stable income stream. So if you're self-employed, they may want to see tax returns. They like to see, banks are very conservative, so they don't like taking risks for the most part, and so they may want you to demonstrate that you have experience and that you know what you're doing and things like that. I talked about that a couple of weeks ago at the event in Virginia, another event which I was a speaker about raising money and also having what I call a credibility kit, which is what I developed, which talks about who I am, what I do, what differentiates me from other investors, why should people borrow me money, how am I going to protect their investment, and why they should do business with me. I talked about all that in a credibility kit. So that's something that you may want to consider assembling, a credibility kit, which is something that you can now show to other people, which tells your story in a graphical way, in a book way, and hopefully get people to feel more comfortable borrowing you money and things like that. So furthermore, banks, the approval process can be lengthy. They do what they call full doc, which means that you're going to have to provide a whole lot of documentation. They're going to do their due diligence checks on you, and so on. So that's the process for getting money from banks. And many times they're not going to borrow you 100%. They're going to borrow you maybe 75%, and you're going to come up with a 25%. They may borrow you 80%, which means that you're going to come up with the other 20% and so forth. So it's very hard to get quote unquote 100% financing. They expect you to have quote unquote skin in the game. They expect you to bring some money into the play for down payments and things like that. So, if you don't have the money for the down payment, the 20%, 25%, then you're going to need to get that from some other source. It could be private investors, friends, family, and other people, because it's going to be highly doubtful you'll get 100% financing. So, so that could be a barrier to some people, is being able to raise all that money, and so on. But anyway, that is the long and short of the bank type financing. And so let's talk about some action items that you can do as it pertains to getting money from traditional banks. Action item you want to do is to assess what I call your financial readiness, which is you getting ready before you actually approach a financial institution. So you may want to check your credit, see what your credit score is. You may want to do your debt to income ratio, look at or assess your existing debt. Look into your reserves. How much savings do you have? How much liquid capital do you have? And so on. So the idea is to understand what banks are looking for and prepare yourself before you actually meet with them. And therefore, when you actually do meet with them, it's clear that you've done your homework and you're able to, put your best foot forward, as they say. Another action item you may want to consider is to consult with a mortgage broker or financial advisor to understand the various loan products that are out there, qualification requirements that they have, and also which loan products makes the most sense for you, given your situation, given what you're trying to do, and things like that. A third action item is to prepare and organize all your necessary documentation in advance. Institutions are going to look for ask certain things: pay stubs, bank statements, tax returns, proof of income, and so on. This is all part of the standard things that banks look for. So if you know that, then it just makes more sense to get it ready before you actually meet with somebody. That's what I used to do. I put all my documents together in a nice 3-ring binder, sectioned it out, and took it to banks when I need it. It looks very impressive. That, coupled with the credibility kit, it really does differentiate you from your competition, and also puts you in a very good situation. So that's number one, which is traditional banks. Let's go to number two, which is seller financing for newbies. Okay, so another approach that new investors may want to consider is what we call seller financing. The question here is, what is seller financing? What is it? And how can it benefit first-time real estate investors? Okay, so what in the world is seller financing, and how can it benefit you and I, or we as new investors, or as real estate investors generally? So seller financing is an alternative financing structure where the seller of the property, the seller acts as the bank, the lender, allowing you, the buyer, to actually acquire the property. So you can acquire the property instead of paying money to the banks. The seller is the one that's actually funding the transaction. So you're making payments to the seller instead of to the bank over a period of time. So essentially, the seller is the bank. The seller is providing financing. That's why we call it seller financing. So this is really advantageous for new investors, especially for those people who may not be able to qualify for traditional banks. I mean, as I said before, banks make you go through hoops. And sometimes you just can't get it. You can't qualify for traditional bank financing. So in situations like this, seller financing becomes very attractive, because the seller, as opposed to a bank, is now the lender. And if the seller is the bank, then they may have different levels of requirements. They may not be so stringent. They may being a lot more lax on your credit score, for example, or your income requirements, example, and so on. And the good thing about seller financing is that you're dealing with individuals, and so therefore they can be a lot more flexible on their terms. So they may require lower down payment or even no down payment. You can negotiate the interest rates. They're less rigid in terms of the borrowing criteria, because again, it's what you can negotiate with the seller, and as a result of that, it can be a lot easier for new investors to actually get financing through sellers as opposed to going through traditional banks as well. So one significant benefit of seller financing, though, is that you're dealing with just individuals, so it can be faster, okay, and it can be simpler in terms of the transaction process. And there's no, there may not be a need to have rigorous approval processes compared to a traditional bank. And also, you can negotiate the terms and conditions between the buyer and the seller. You can have scenarios that makes the most sense for everybody. You can have what we call balloon payments, i.e., once, after X number of years, 1 year, 5 years, 3 years, whatever, then the full loan is due. You can negotiate that. You can negotiate the interest rate. You can negotiate whether it's interest only or principal and interest. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do as it pertains to seller financing. That's why it becomes very, very attractive for new investors. But with that said, it's there are certain things you have to be consider. You really need to understand what you're getting into in terms of the financial obligations, but also the legal obligations, legal implications, that you're signing the dotted line for. If you don't perform, you could lose the house, or the seller could foreclose on you, and so on. So there are pitfalls. It's not easy sailing. It does require you to understand what you're doing. It does require you to seek counsel to make sure that what you're signing is in fact what it is that you want to do. But with that said, a lot of people use seller financing, especially when credit gets tighter, and so on. So what's some of the action items that you may want to consider when we're doing seller financing? Number one is to educate yourself on the legal aspects of seller financing, okay? And also, you may want to consider consulting a real estate attorney to review any agreements and documents before you actually sign it, okay? The other thing is to negotiate the terms that offer a clear advantage, clear win-win for all parties. Otherwise, what's the point in doing it? Okay, there's got to be a reason why you want to go seller financing. So it has to be a win-win for both parties, the seller and for you. And and also I think you may want to build on your credibility, your just your track record, your integrity, and because it's about trust. And if they don't trust you, no one trusts you, it's hard for anybody to borrow you money because you're not trustworthy. So what can you do to build your credibility? And that's where the credibility kick comes in. That's really trying to understand the business that you're in. And as I said before, try to answer some basic questions. Why should people lend to you? What differentiates you from your competition and other people who are looking to borrow money? Why should they do business with you? How much you want from them? How are you going to protect their investments? All these things are important questions that you have to answer, or at least be clear in your mind, so that way when you approach sellers or private investors, you stand out, and hopefully you become less of a risk. Okay, so that is number 2, which is the seller financing. And so we'll be going to Q&A shortly. It's now 7:27. So put your questions in the chat box. I'll get to in about 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes. Anything to the real estate investing, whether you're a new investor, seasoned investor, if you got a difficult question, if you got a challenging situation that you want to throw out there, and I'll do my best to try to give you my perspective. So put them in the chat box, and I'll get to them in about 5 or 10 minutes. The third thing I want to talk about for new investors is leveraging partnerships. So the question I suppose with partnerships is how can partnerships enhance your financing options when acquiring your first investment property? How can how can partnerships, help you on your journey towards financial independence when acquiring your first property? So, financing. This is a tricky one. I've had some good and bad experiences with partnerships, and so the important thing is that forming partnerships, it can significantly widen the scope of financing options. There's people out there with money that you may not have, and you have to convince them for them to want to do business with you. Why should they do business with you? But the good thing is that if you can tap into that those resources, then that there are rewards that's out there. So partnerships enable you to pull financial resources, from others, which can then in turn increase your purchasing power and your ability to access larger or even more lucrative investment opportunities that may go beyond what is possible with just you by yourself. At some point, you're going to run out of money. There's only so much you can do. But if you can tap into other resources, other sources of financing from other individuals, then it just opens up more, to you. So this collaboration can come in different forms in terms of partnerships. They could be formal, like joint ventures, limited partnerships, and so on. Or it can be informal, like through investment groups and so on. So there are different ways. And as always, there are pros and cons with either. And but the idea here is that you're tapping into other resources for financing because you don't have it. You're bringing something to the table, but the other person is bringing something to the table as well, which is probably money. But you may be bringing expertise, experience in exchange for that money. Okay, so it now becomes a win-win for both parties. The other party couldn't be able to do the deal because they don't have the expertise, but you're limited because you don't have the money. So you can create some kind of scenario that becomes a win with both parties. Like all partnerships, my take is that partnership is almost like a marriage. If you get the right partner, life is good. If you get the wrong partner, it's a disaster and it's a headache and so on. So pick your partners very carefully. Make sure that you both understand you're on the same page. Make sure that this is the kind of person you want to do business with. And this is the kind of person you want to, quote, marry as far as the agreement. And make sure that whatever documents that you have, they're carefully reviewed. You understand what the terms and conditions are. And you both have shared goals. Shared mutual trust, and you've clearly communicated all terms of the agreement. So that's really important. This is a legal document, and so how decisions are made and how disputes are resolved need to be in the document, and the process also to exit the partnership, I think, should be documented as well. So in terms of partnerships, a couple of action items here. One is to identify potential partners that you may want to do business with who share similar investment goals and strategies. And they also assess, financial stability in similar to you. That's an action item if you want to consider partnership. Another thing is to draft a comprehensive partnership agreement. This is now if you are a lot more serious. We drafted, we had a partnership agreement drafted by an attorney, and we had it reviewed, and and so on. So formalize that. Have at least considerations of the some of the things that you want in an agreement, and it should be clear. It shouldn't be ambiguous, and because it has to be legally binding. And the other thing is that if you do enter into a partnership, make sure you regularly meet with your partners to review investment performance, discuss new opportunities, and also you make sort of collective decisions and so on. So by effectively leveraging partnerships, new investors can really amplify their financial capability. You can tap into resources that you otherwise would not be able to do that. And so it's a really a good way to fast track your deal flow because you have money now, which you may not have had before. And then finally, I'll just quickly do something about government programs as a vehicle for funding. So what government programs and grants are available to help finance your first investment property, and how can they reduce your financial burden? So what are these programs that are out there that you may want to tap into? Government programs and grants can be an invaluable resource. There's money out there at the local, federal, state level, for new real estate investors. There are. You just have to take the time to research them. And there are some, because a lot of these government entities want to encourage and support businesses. And so they put money out there to help you. But, like any bureaucratic, it's a process. And, it can be bureaucratic. It can be a headache trying to get government money. And but there are, economic development money. There's revitalization money. And there are programs out there that are trying to encourage people to invest in certain areas. So these are sources of funding that you may want to consider. There's also programs to help with down payment assistance. There's low interest rate monies. There's tax credits. These are all government programs which are funded by the government to help you, real estate investor, tap into these resources. So another one is the FHA, Federal Housing Administration loans. They do offer FHA, what we call FHA loans, which is lower interest rate loans. Not lower interest rate, but down payment assistance, I suppose, because you require less money. It could be 3%, 5%, and so forth instead of 20, 25% monies, which allows you to get into houses easier. It's really good for the house hacking strategy, where you can acquire property using FHA money, live in one of the, buy the house or apartment, live in one unit or part of the house, and then rent the other part. And therefore you have the tenants paying you, the loan payments. So, these programs can be particularly appealing for new investors who may not have a substantial amount of capital or even a great credit history to get going. In terms of grants, as I said before, there are quite a few of them out there. It does require research. There are consultants out there that can help you, advise you as to what's available and whether you can qualify or should qualify for them. There are renovation loans. I know I took advantage of some of those a few years ago. There's quite a lot of lead abatement program money in Washington, D.C. because the housing stock is older. There was a lot of money available to eliminate lead in these houses. So I got quite a bit of money on things like replacing doors, windows, and baseboards and things like that because the government wanted to reduce lead levels in the homes. So grants are definitely, these are all grants. I didn't have to pay them back. Must have got at least $150,000, $200,000 worth of grants, free money, and so on. So there are loans out there. There are grants out there. It's not easy, but they're out there, and it could be a real source of potential financing for us, for you, and for new investors. So what are some of the action items you may want to consider as it pertains to grants and government programs? Research state, federal, local programs that provide financing options or incentives for real estate investment. There are resources out there from the state level, at the HUD level, the federal level, even at the local government levels as well. Another action item is to contact financial advisors or mortgage brokers who specialize in real estate investments to understand what programs are out there and which ones you may qualify for your situation. And the third thing is by leveraging government programs and grants, new investors can, there's nothing wrong with free money, okay? And if there's money out there that's free, I think you owe yourself, a duty, I think, to go out there and get it. If you don't get it, somebody else is going to get it for you. So what are the critical, I'm going to kind of wrap it up now, conclusion. The question is going to be, what are the critical takeaways for effectively financing your first real estate investment? Successfully, financing your real estate deal is pivotal. It's really important. What I try to do here is to uncover some of the top 4 areas, whether it be banks, seller financing, whether it be grants, whether it be partnerships, and things like that. There are pros and cons with each approach. It's not easy. You have to work for money. Money doesn't grow on trees, as they say. So it's hard work, but it's doable. And if you're a new investor, it's definitely worthwhile to explore each of those areas I've discussed today. And I hope that today was helpful. Hopefully I gave you some good ideas on how to get money if you're starting out. As I said before, it's never easy. It's intimidating. It's scary, but it's doable. And if you have a plan of action, you got your act together, you do the preparations, the research beforehand, I think you'll be fine. So with that said, then, my friends, I'm going to wrap it up for this section of the education portion, and we're going to go to Q&A. So if you've got some questions, please enter your questions in the chat box, and I will try to get to them in a couple of minutes. If you want to shoot me an email, you can reach me at joe@joeasimo.com, joe@joeasimo.com. And as I said earlier on, if you want to book a one-on-one with me to deep dive into any specific situation that you may have as it pertains to real estate investing, landlording, Section 8, BRRRR, whatever it is, there's a pretty good chance I can help you with that. So with that said, let's get down to the questions. And again, if you got some questions, please put them in the chat box and I'll get to them shortly. Amon, how you doing, man? Good morning, Dr. Joe. Good evening to you as well, Amon. Melissa, hello, Dr. Joe. I'm so excited for your talk. I am currently selling my condo rental in Denver and will be purchasing a multifamily in Cleveland. Fingers crossed. So, okay. So, Melissa, congratulations. I hope you can sell your condo in Denver and hopefully you'll be able to purchase a multifamily. So it looks like you're going to go from one asset class to another asset class. You're going to go from single or condo to a multifamily. It's a great idea. It's obviously I don't know the specifics of your situation, Melissa, but it's definitely a strategy. If you buy a multifamily, you can possibly get greater cash flow, and so you probably end up with more cash flow from the multifamily than what you're making from your condo in Denver. Obviously, the other details is going to be, the price of the property in Denver. Another thing is going to be whether you're going to do a tax-free or tax-deferred 1031 exchange, or whether you're going to be doing a traditional sale and purchase. I mean, there's a lot to it. But either way, I applaud you. I congratulate you on on this journey that you're taking. If I can be of assistance on your journey, please let me know. Okay, Greg, good evening from Tyson's Corner. Hey, Greg, Tyson's Corner, just around the corner. Well, it's not around the corner, but it's in the DC area, just on the other side of Washington, DC in Virginia. Hope you're doing well, Greg. Again, if you got some questions, please put them in the chat box, and I'll try to answer them as soon as I can. Is the Flair Lounge event through a meetup of some kind? Yes, it is. Oh boy. If you go to my, it's not, I'll put a flyer up there. It's a meetup. Ashley is the one that's going to be holding this one. Let's have a look. And shoot me an email and I'll send you the information. Shoot me an email and about the event next week, and you can shoot me an email at joe@joeasimo.com, joe@joeasimo.com, and I will send you information about the event next Thursday at the Flair Lounge and in U Street Corridor, Northwest Washington, D.C. It should be a good one. I think it's a panel. There's going to be some food over there, and networking is going on, and it should be a great place to kind of hobnob and get out there, have a drink or so, and just network with like-minded people. So I'm looking forward to that one. I'll be on the panel next week, and so my goal is to try and be out there. I was out there Yesterday, as I said, I was out there a couple of weeks ago, another event, and I'll be out there next Thursday at the Flair Lounge, and so on. Okay, let's have a next question. Karen, good evening, Karen. Dr. Joe, glad to be here. Same to you as well, Karen. Melissa, I'm selling to my current tenant. Oh, wow, you're selling to your current tenants. So your current tenants has decided to purchase your home, and you're going to pocket the money and then buy multifamily. Fantastic, good for you. I'm interested to know, how did you incentivize them, Melissa, to get them to buy it? You know, what did you have to do? Did you have to give them some kind of sweetener, maybe some down payment assistance? Did you have to, I'll be curious to know, because I've never really had any success. There's a few houses where I've done rent to own, where the goal is that the tenants would, pay the rent. I mean, they're renting, but they'll have an option to purchase. And I've just never had success with any of my renters, tenants actually purchasing my home. I mean, they want to. Obviously, if they're a voucher holder, that's probably not going to happen. But if they're market renters, which I do have some market renters, some of them desire to actually own something, and but I've just never had any success with market renters actually purchasing my home. So I'm curious to hear your experience, Melissa, and how you're able to get your tenants to buy your property. So shoot back in the comments, and let us know. I think I'll be curious to know. I am planning on borrowing. Is there a financing where I do not have to wait 6 months to a year for the seasoning period to refi? Okay, good question, Melissa. So what Melissa is talking about is that she's selling a house in Denver, and her tenants are the one going to purchase it. So she's going to do that, take the money from that, and then she's going to turn around and buy a multifamily unit in Cleveland, Ohio, as part of the BRRRR strategy. So BRRRR is buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. It's an acronym coined up by what's his name again? Oh gosh. Bigger Pockets fame. Oh gosh, Brandon Turner. It's an acronym coined up by Brandon Turner, and to it's a term which I've been using PER for 20-30 years before it became BRRRR. But essentially, it allows you to recycle money, from one property and acquire a portfolio of properties a lot faster than having to raise the money all yourself. So the question that Melissa has is, some banks, they have what we call seasoning requirements. They require you to have held title to the property for a minimum period of time. Some banks, it's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 3 months, 6 months, a year. It just depends on the financial institution as to how long they expect you to be on title before you can refinance, the loan that you got to be on title for a certain period of time. I have relationship with banks where they don't have any requirements, so you could literally buy a house today and sell it tomorrow, and you could be on title for a day or two. They don't care. But there are others that require you to have been on title for at least 3 months, 6 months, a year, and things like that. So what you're going to have to do is to shop around, especially to smaller banks in the Cleveland area where you're going to be acquiring your property. I would suggest that you go to the local banks as opposed to the big chain box, the Bank of Americas, the Chase of this world. I would suggest that you may want to explore going to some of the smaller local banks where your property is located. Develop some relationships with them and explain to them what you're trying to do, and hopefully they'll be open to lending you money, and they may or may not have any seasoning requirements, and so on. So there are banks out there that don't have seasoning requirements, Melissa, and it's definitely worthwhile to check that out as part of your research and so on. Melissa, pay cash, get a construction loan, refi on the back end. So she wants to buy for cash, get a construction loan, typically like a hard money loan. So she's using the proceeds from the sale in Denver to purchase the multi-unit in Cleveland for cash. Okay. And then it may require some renovations. So she's going to get a loan. So right now, if she pays it for with cash, there's no loan. She owns it free and clear. Then she's going to get a loan to do some renovations on the house, I assume. And then the renovations is going to force the value up. And as the value increases, the appraised value will increase. But also, I think you won't be able to do the refi on the back end until you have some renters, some tenants, or you have some leases that you can show to the bank, the lender at the back end. So this is where the stickler comes in, is that some lenders want you to have been on title for a limited period of time before they will do the refi on the back end. Okay, that's the reason why you need. That's the reason why some banks have seasoning requirements. They don't like flips. They don't like you to make all this money very, very quickly. They want you to have held title for a limited or at least a short period of time. So, so what you're going to need, Melissa, is to find a bank that doesn't have seasoning requirements, so that way you can do your refi on the back end once you've stabilized the asset. We've got some new tenants in there. You can then go to the bank and say, hey, I've got some tenants to this multifamily unit or building. Here's the rents that I'm coming in. This is the income that's coming in. I want to borrow money based on the value of the house and also borrow money based on the income that is being generated by this asset. And but that's the challenge you're going to do, is to find banks that are okay with owning something for less than 3 months, 6 months, and things like that. Good questions, Melissa. I know they love the place. Good. I let them know that I'm an appraiser. You're an appraiser now, and that my price is fair. Good. Benefits to them: no showings from MLS, no open houses to live through, no moving costs. I pay the agent. Okay, good. So essentially, what Melissa is saying is that she was able to incentivize the tenants to actually purchase her property. And how she did that, she said, look, if you buy it, there's going to be reduced costs. Okay, I'll take care of the appraisal. The value is fair. Okay, she's not trying to milk them dry and get top dollar. She's offering them the opportunity to buy the house at a fair price. And what's in it for them? There's no showings. Okay, so they don't have traffic going in and out of their place. No open houses to go through. There's no moving costs because obviously they're in the place. And she's going to pay part of the selling cost, like the agent and so on. So that's how Melissa was able to create her win-win scenario for this deal here in Denver, and her purchase of the property in Cleveland, Ohio. Again, kudos, Melissa. Good job. Let's have a look. If you got some questions, I'm going to wrap it up in a couple of minutes. But if you've got some questions, put them in the chat box, and I'll try to get to them. Karen P, does Melissa have prospective tenants for the property in Cleveland? That's a question to you, Melissa, from Karen. Do you have prospective tenants on your property in Cleveland, or you are buying it vacant and you're going to do the renovations, and then once the renovations are complete, then you're then going to start finding tenants? That's the question that Karen wants to ask you. It does make a difference because, again, you want to typically refinance once you can show income, once you have leases, because the bank is going to say on the refi side, well, okay, how are you going to pay for our loan? And if you've got some leases that you have, then you can say, well, I'm going to pay for the loan based on these leases, based on this income flow that's coming into this property. Okay, let's have a look. I am waiting to close in Denver before I find my place in Cleveland. Okay. So the plot thickens. So it sounds like Melissa is going to sell her house in Denver first. And then once she's got the money, she's going to then look to find a property in Cleveland. That sounds like Melissa's strategy. That opens a whole nother pool of questions, Melissa. Why are you doing that process? Why are you doing a 1031? Are you going to collect the money, or is it going to go through some third-party intermediary? So you can do a 1031 and be able to defer some of the capital gains that you'll be liable for if you were to sell the Denver property and so on. So it sounds like you're going to sell Denver first, and then use that to use the proceeds anyway to purchase properties in Cleveland. Again, great strategy. It makes a lot of sense. I think Cleveland, the prices are probably more reasonable than they are in Denver. So I would think that you should be able to buy some pretty good properties in Cleveland based on, obviously it's going to depend on how much you make from your property in Denver. I'm also curious, why do you choose Cleveland? You got the whole of the US to choose from. I've been to Cleveland a couple of times. It's a great place. So I'm just curious to know why you chose Cleveland versus, let's say, another place, or even something closer, not too far from where you are in Denver. I'll be curious to know that as well. I'll prefer a vacant property. So she would prefer to buy a property that's vacant, and that way she doesn't have to inherit tenants. And I want to have my cash in hand. I lived in the condo for 2 years out of the past 5 years, so I do not have to 1031. Okay, so it will used to be a part of a primary residence. So it sounds like she may not be subject to capital gain. So that's a good thing. So she doesn't have to do a 1031. Because it was a primary residence for 2 of the past 5 years. So she may be able to qualify without having to pay any capital gains on the sale. So, okay, I'm getting these updates piece by piece. So hopefully this is helping. And I do not have capital gains. Exactly. So that's it. So I think that's the reason why she's not going with a 1031 exchange. It's not necessary because she's not going to incur any capital gains taxes, which is going to save quite a bit of money, and so on. So, well, look, good. So hopefully this is helpful. And, we had a good session going back and forth with Melissa's scenario and Karen and everybody else. So hopefully that was helpful. I think I'm going to wrap it up for the day. Let's have a look. What does Melissa have to say? I should walk away with 140K. Oh my goodness, good for you. Multifamily properties are less pricey in Cleveland, easier to stack. Exactly. You can build a portfolio faster, it sounds like. In Cleveland, the cost of acquisitions are lower, and you're going to get about 140K in profits from your sale of the condo in Denver. So I think all around what you're doing makes a lot of sense. Kudos to yourself, Melissa, and very proud of you, very happy for you. If I can be of further assistance on this journey, feel free to let me know. And this is what I like. I like when people take action. There's a theory. At some point, you have to pull the trigger and take action. And so kudos to you, Melissa. I'm very, very happy for you. I hope that everything works out okay. And please keep us posted on how that project comes along. I'm sure you're going to go through some trials and tribulations. That's just how it works. But hopefully everything will work out just fine. So with that said, my friends, I am going to wrap it up at 7:58 for the day. Again, if you want to shoot me an email, you can shoot me an email at joe@joeasamoah.com. And if you want to have a one-on-one with me, book a one-on-one, go to my website, go to where it says Ask Dr. Joe, Ask Dr. Joe. And so go to my website, www.joeasamoah.com. And hopefully I'll see everybody next Thursday if you're in Washington, D.C. area, and at 7 p.m. And otherwise, I'll see you next Wednesday. There will be a Capital Connections meeting next Wednesday. I won't be going to that one because I'll be doing the Wealth Wednesday next week. And so hopefully our paths will cross again next Wednesday. Kudos to everybody that was out there in Richmond, Virginia yesterday at the, cracking the code event. And looking forward to, helping you on your journey as well. Kudos to Ray for inviting me. Met some really good people down yesterday. And I don't go to Richmond very often, but I had a good time. And the gas is cheaper than it is in the DC area. But Richmond is just a couple of hours away, so it wasn't too bad. My friends, have yourself a wonderful evening. And I will speak to you next Wednesday. Take care. Bye for now.